Hi people, it's Sarkovist here, and today you join me playing The Division on the PC. I have recently hit level 13, I've been playing the game for a few days now, and I feel that although I'm not in a position to fully review the game, because I think in order to do that with a game of this scale, you'd have to be playing for quite a while, I'm talking months here, I can give some impressions of the game and the principles on which the game is based, which are, to be quite frank, very familiar and I have to say by this point, for me personally, growing quite tiresome. So this game is, I feel, a well-polished game. For a game of this nature, as in open world and incorporates MMO aspects without really being an MMO, the graphics are alright, but it doesn't give a great impression to me, first of all. I mean, one thing that bothers me is just the hair of my character. It just looks so unrealistic, and considering it's the thing that I'm constantly looking at, it doesn't do the game many favours. And although the game can look very good, especially during the sunrise when the light is pouring across the streets, on the whole, it's difficult to define exactly what it is about the graphics I'm not a massive fan of, but I think it's, to be honest, that they're quite basic, that there aren't enough, I guess, complex lighting techniques, perhaps you'd say. Maybe the textures aren't sharp enough, but something about the way the game looks just doesn't look on par with some of Ubisoft's other games. I mean, when you look at things like Far Cry Primal, which is a mind-blowing, astonishing visual feast, The Division just pales in comparison. It doesn't look ugly by any means, but it's just not quite up there. But that's something that you can make a judgment on yourself based on the footage I'm showing you. But then again, there's the gameplay, and the gameplay is of course the major focus. Going to the graphics, first of all, was maybe a bit harsh. The gameplay is very similar to something like Diablo or Destiny, in that you're doing quests, and by doing those quests you're getting rewards to do more difficult quests, and then those more difficult quests give you rewards that allow you to do even more difficult quests, and so on and so forth. There is a story here, and I'd actually say this game goes further than some of its contemporaries to tell a story, or at least give some background, but it is by no means the strength. But then again, except for maybe games like Splinter Cell, Tom Clancy games have seldom made the story their main focus and have not been their draw point. When you're just playing in the third-person perspective, going behind cover and shooting guys, I actually found the game to be most similar to Gears of War, and that's mostly due to the amount of damage that most enemies can take when you're fighting enemies that are the same level to you. They don't go down very quickly. You can get a few assault rifle headshots in and still have them be alive. So one thing you need to immediately abandon is any concept of this game being realistic in terms of its combat. It's very fun, and when you're fighting with two other people, when you're coordinating and you're trying to cover the battlefield, it actually is very fun, I'd say quite riveting, but one thing it is not is realistic, especially when you're coming up across some of these later boss fights. And the boss fights, maybe they're a sniper for instance, they're not wearing very heavy armor, but you can literally snipe them in the head several times and they are still alive. So again, abandon any idea that this is a realistic combat game. It presents itself as realistic, but it is not at all realistic. And then there is loot system, which really is the driving motivation behind wanting to continue to play this game. I think it's a weakness that perhaps gamers have, that we need to get more and more powerful. And so as a result, whenever we're offered some kind of reward to doing something, even if it's purely statistically based, we want to take it. And so games like this and games like World of Warcraft and Diablo can really hook you by constantly promising that idea of getting more powerful by getting more loot. And it's something that Division does well, but I also don't have an inherent respect for it as a mechanic, because it can make you play things that you're not actually really enjoying just to get this reward that will allow you to do things that you won't necessarily enjoy. If you do have fun with the tactical combat in this game, then it's just going to supplement it and make it a lot more enjoyable. But otherwise it could compel you to play this game that you're not having a great deal of fun with just because you want to get more powerful. Some people are more susceptible than others, some people couldn't care less. Some people get utterly obsessed with it. I know someone who would just play Diablo, for instance, hours and hours and hours. They're not playing any different content, they're playing the same thing, but they're just obsessed with making themselves more powerful for no real reason. And I worry that this could also affect people who play The Division. Again though, it is, I'd say, a polished game. It's a game where the mechanics that are in the game work well. But at the same time, I never really wanted to play it for long periods of time. I'd kind of think, oh, you know what, I might make my character on The Division a bit more powerful, see what I can do. Maybe team up with some people online, and that is, to be honest, quite fun. But it's not a game that has hooked me as of yet. It's not a game that has really grabbed me. And I wouldn't say that's any fault of the game, it's just that the mechanics are quite familiar. Not only is the shooting familiar, so when I'm just playing the game, but also that system that I've mentioned of getting more and more powerful. I've done it so many times before, and that draw has started to wane now. So it's a bit difficult to recommend The Division as a result, because it's a game that I think initially appears quite fun, quite compelling, but I definitely at least watch this game for a decent amount of time, get an idea if you want to play it or not. Luckily, I got it for free because I got it with my graphics card, so I don't have any kind of regrets on this game. And to be honest, considering I got it for free, it's amazing. It is actually especially quite fun, to be fair, when you go into a mission and you all have complementary powers. There are different tech trees and you can specialise in different areas, and when you've got 3 people, you can have lots of different abilities to all help each other out, and that definitely makes the combat feel a bit more dynamic. But again, talent trees, that's something we've seen before so many times in so many different games, so while I commend it being in here, I don't think it's at all original. And although the game is an open world, I think it's fair to say the best open worlds out there give you lots of unique things to do and sandboxes to play around with. That's something that The Division doesn't do. It just happens to take place in an open world. Although it may be set in New York, it's nothing like GTA 4, if that makes sense. I mean, the simple idea that you can't drive a car, that you can't really have true freedom of movement, there's a lot of restrictions in place, is a little frustrating. Although it does take something from Watch Dogs that I really like, and that's that the city doesn't feel like a copy and paste job. It feels like buildings have been deliberately designed, that back alleys have been deliberately designed, that everything has been put in place to create an atmosphere. You can't necessarily interact with those little details in every case, but it does a good job of establishing the environment you're in. So to summarise, while on a subjective level I can't say I've exactly been hooked by The Division, I'll take a step back for a moment and see it from an objective perspective. If you're the kind of gamer who enjoys this style of game, you will really like The Division, because it does what it does very well. It's just a matter of, do you like what it does? This has been The Division, me at level 13. As always, people, thanks very much for watching and see you next time.